Excuse me, I'm muted. Thank you all for joining me for the Sidereal Insights Astro Update for July 13th, 2020. We're broadcasting just a day behind schedule today. But here on the broadcast, every 2 weeks, we explore the astrology of the current planetary transits across the heavens from a Western sidereal perspective. And so if you need to look up your sidereal sign placement, you'll want to hit the online calculator at mysticphysic.com/sidereal tools. Let me mute. My browser's caught up. Let me mute my browser. Whoa. What a bewildering tech day it's been. I apologize. Okay, so I'm Phaedra. I'm the astrologer and artist of Mystic Physic Astrology. For those of you who are new to the broadcast, I know most of you kind of know me already. I use Western sidereal astrology in my practice, and my practice is really centered around helping you reconnect with your soul purpose and remember why you came into this life to begin with. And so really the purpose of the broadcast is to provide guidance for you on how you can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets in a positive way. So responding to your transits rather than just reacting to your transits. So we're looking ahead, we're looking at what types of energies these transits can bring about and getting a little bit of a heads up clue on how we can navigate them, how we can leverage the energy to our advantage and work with it rather than fighting against it, right? If that all makes sense, I hope it does. Kind of a practical approach to using astrology. And so I want to thank you for watching today. Feel free to like and share the broadcast or tag a friend if you know someone who might be interested in what we're going to be talking about today. And today, we're going to be talking about, we're going to kind of recap where we're at with retrograde season because we've had some changes in the last just few days. We're going to talk about the upcoming new moon in Cancer. This is kind of interesting. And we're going to talk about current and upcoming transits as well to kind of position you with what we have in the next couple of weeks, and then just like a sneak preview of what's coming up just beyond that. So first, what I'd like to do is recap the retrogrades. So where we're at with retrogrades and where we're at with current transits. And so some of this is a little bit of review if you've been watching weekly. So Pluto, let's start with that one. Pluto went retrograde late April in Sagittarius. He's going to be retrograde until October 5th. So we're still kind of in process there, midway-ish through his retrograde. We had in May, just going into mid-May, kind of a retrograde week. If you recall, we talked about that, where Saturn, Venus, and Jupiter all stationed retrograde just within days of each other over a period of about 4 days. These three planets stationed retrograde in their respective signs, Saturn in Capricorn, Venus in Taurus, and Jupiter stationed retrograde in Capricorn, but now he has retrogressed. He's regressed back into his home sign of Sagittarius. And then late last month on June 23rd, we had Neptune station retrograde in Aquarius as well. And I don't know that I have the dates right in front of me for Mercury's retrograde, but he just stationed direct yesterday. So Mercury is resuming direct motion. And we will be out of his shadow by late in the month-ish. So we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. I'm going to get my notes back to where they belong. So kind of recapping where we're at with the transits as far as what sign each of the planets is in. Just starting with Saturn in Capricorn, that's a longer term transit. Saturn's going to be in Capricorn until late 2023. This is a situation where you can expect to be tested in the area of your life occupied by Capricorn in your sidereal natal chart over that 3-year period. Okay, most of us kind of have a good sense now possibly of how we're going to be tested, because usually we get those signals when the planet first, when Saturn first moves into a sign. You should get kind of a heads up about where you're going to be tested, and then that test is going to be kind of ongoing in the coming 3 years. Jupiter is kind of in the middle of a shift. So Jupiter began his transit of Capricorn April 6th. So early April, he's going to be transiting Capricorn until April 2021. However, he's in the middle of his retrograde, and his retrograde has just taken him back into Sidereal Sagittarius, and he'll be in Sidereal Sagittarius until November-ish of this year. So if you have any lingering Jupiter in Sagittarius business that you need to wrap up or address, you have Jupiter's retrograde to do that. Be sure you get those Jupiter in Sagittarius issues completely wrapped up and situated exactly the way that you want them by the time he moves back into Capricorn coming up in November. Okay. Keep in mind, I want to talk about this a little bit. Jupiter is in fall in Capricorn. I know he's not in Capricorn right now, but it's just something to be aware of. We don't see his best tendencies necessarily on display while he's in Capricorn because he is in fall. And so Jupiter, the less beneficial side of Jupiter can be a tendency to excess. It can be too much of a good thing, right? And so in Capricorn, that could come across as maybe like dictatorial tendencies or a tendency to throw our weight around or abuse our authority, kind of a my way or the highway kind of attitude. And it could also basically lead us into situations where we're experiencing an escalation of commitment, or maybe we're excessively stubborn about something, or we tend to be a little bit all work and no play, which isn't really healthy either. So just be aware of that when Jupiter moves back into Capricorn in November. And for the remainder of his transit there until April 2021, this could be really what we experience. So maybe just a little bit of frustration there during that transit. Just kind of be aware of that. Now, Jupiter is going to station direct September 12th, I believe. Let me scroll back up and get those dates. Jupiter until September 12th. Saturn's going to station direct September 29th. And then Pluto, like I said, until October 5th, to kind of give you an idea of how long those are going to last. Now, Neptune, of the outer planets, Neptune is the most recent to station retrograde, and Neptune retrograde. Hold on, we've been disconnected from OBS. It says we're reconnecting. I just want to make sure that we really are reconnected. Facebook says we're paused. OBS says we're reconnected. Of course, there's a little bit of a delay. But thank you for bearing with me during the interruption. If you're still on. Oh, it says we're ended. Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and finish the broadcast and upload the recording afterward. How about that? All right. So let me move my notes back in front of me so I can see where we're at. So Neptune retrograde can tend to expose secrets, lies, deception, rot, and decay. Okay. So things where breakdown is in process, right? And as I mentioned in our broadcast 2 weeks ago, this is made even more impactful by the influence of the eclipses because Neptune's retrograde began at eclipse season, and Neptune was involved in a few of the eclipse configurations that we had. And Neptune retrograde at eclipse time just really means that there's going to be more of a potential for those revealings to trigger irrevocable change, even if something doesn't begin or end. And we talked about how this, so eclipse season is when things tend to begin or end, permanent beginnings, permanent endings, major changes in our lives. And eclipses have a tendency to reveal secrets and hidden information, right? So with Neptune retrograding at the time, that kind of compounds that. It amplifies that, right? The eclipse rulers have been largely retrograde in their own signs during this eclipse season. And when the eclipse rulers are retrograde, sometimes it means those endings or beginnings aren't really permanent. So I want to just kind of frame that for you, that even if a thing doesn't begin or end, the kind of change that Neptune retrograde at eclipse time could trigger with that potential for exposure of secrets or lies or deception or rot and decay, it could trigger irrevocable change to whatever is going on for you related to your eclipse sign and eclipse house. Even if a thing doesn't come to a permanent ending or have a permanent new beginning, there could be irrevocable change around whatever that is. So just be aware of that. It's a little bit different way of experiencing eclipses. Right now we also have Venus in Taurus until August 2nd. It's an extraordinarily long transit, and it's because she had her retrograde this year. That happens usually every 18 months or so. When Venus is in Taurus, we're a little bit more in tune with our senses, with our desires, our values. We tend to seek comfort, stability, pleasure, profit, the good things in life, right? So just enjoy Venus's transit of Taurus for now. The retrograde is over, and so you can move kind of full steam ahead on Venus-ruled activities. We don't have to worry about that. And you can kind of capitalize on the remainder of her transit of Taurus through the 2nd of August by getting your Venus house in order and making your initiations on Venus-ruled activities when it's astrologically right for you. Okay, we have Mercury, back up. We have the Sun still in Gemini just for a few more days. She's going to move into Cancer tomorrow, June 15th. We're going to have Cancer season getting underway. She'll be in Cancer. The Sun is male, technically speaking, until August 17th. And so what this does is it can bring up domestic matters, family matters. Clan is kind of a theme of Cancer. We might find ourselves behaving a little more defensively or engage in defensiveness, defensive behavior. We might be a little less inclined to face things head on. So this can kind of be a little bit passive aggressive, which isn't necessarily the best way to approach things. Sun in Cancer, emotional sensitivity can be heightened. Nurturing tendencies can be heightened. We want to nurture what's important when the Sun is in Cancer. Okay. And water-related events can happen with lunations in Cancer. So be aware of that. Sometimes water-related events, especially not so much at the full moon in this instance, or at the new moon in this particular example I'm going to use, but more at the full moon, that can trigger flooding, right? So just be aware of that sort of thing. Water-related events can come up when we have our lunations in Cancer. We've got Mercury in Gemini right now. That began back on June 5th, the day of the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. He's going to be in Gemini until August 2nd. That's the same day that Venus leaves Taurus for Gemini. So on August 2nd, we'll have a shift where Venus will move into Gemini and Mercury will move out of Gemini into Cancer. Okay. Mercury station direct, like I mentioned, the shadow period for that is going to end on July 26th. So don't necessarily kind of gung-ho jump into starting your Mercury ruled activities today. Let Mercury have some time to get back up to speed if you can before you do that. In the coming weeks, what you can do, though, is use that time to lay the ground for implementing the needed changes that you identified during the retrograde period and prepare to relaunch as he gets back up to speed, okay? We have Mars in Pisces. So in the second half of last month, June 19th, Mars moved into Pisces, and he'll be there until August 18th before he shifts back home into Aries. Now, Mars in Pisces kind of has a feel of Mars in the 12th house. And so this is a time when you can really move into rest, retreat, recuperation, and relaxation. It's a time for actively participating in self-care, actively participating in your spiritual practices, meditation, spiritual journeys, and explorations are all favored when Mars is in Pisces, especially explorations and journeys that take you into new spiritual territory, right? Mars is this is the explorer energy. It's forging new paths into uncharted territory. So allow your spiritual explorations to kind of take on a little bit of that kind of flavor. In a less spiritual side of things, you can also use Mars and Pisces to focus more on like solo projects or solo activities. And Pisces folks, you're going to feel a lot more energized during this time. So if you have Pisces Sun or Pisces Rising, you get a bit of an energetic boost while Mars is transiting that sign. And you may find that your life is just more busy and filled with activity in general. Okay. Now, coming up in the next couple of weeks, I want to kind of call this out. We have some solar opposition activity happening, just bang, 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 one right after another. Beginning today, we have the Sun opposing Jupiter retrograde right now. Of course, Jupiter's retrograde at 27 degrees, 18 minutes of Gemini. I want to kind of call out these solar oppositions as being notable for anyone with Leo Sun or Leo Rising. You're going to feel these probably quite significantly, but I also want you to pay attention to the degrees. If you don't have Leo Sun or Leo Rising, take a look at your chart, check the sign and degree. If you have a personal planet or point at that place, you'll feel the solar opposition energy as well. So Sun opposing retrograde Jupiter today at 27:18 Gemini. This will affect potentially Gemini ascendant people, Gemini Sun people. Sun opposing Pluto the day after July 15th at 28 degrees, 41 minutes of Gemini. So this will affect Leo people, Scorpio people. It'll affect Gemini people and anyone with a personal planet or point at 28 or 29-ish degrees of Gemini. Okay. And then July 20th, right as we have our new moon in Cancer, we have the Sun opposing Saturn at 3 degrees, 37 minutes of Cancer. Is that right? Or was that the degree? Heck, I don't remember. That might have been the degree that I saw Saturn was at when I was looking at my phone app. Anyway, I'll double check that after the broadcast. So that particular opposition, because it's at the new moon, has a little bit even more significance. It's significant, of course, for Cancer babies, Cancer ascendant, Capricorn babies, Capricorn ascendant. But it's also significant for the new moon in Cancer as a standalone new moon. Right around that 3 degree 37 minute. I wish I had, no, 3:37 is what I have on my transit report for Saturn, and then 3 degrees 25 minutes as being the actual new moon itself. So real close, within just that 12-minute of arc range. So close enough that you'll feel it if you have personal planets or points happening or in your chart at, say, 3 degrees of Cancer or Capricorn. This will be significant for you as well. Even if you don't have Cancer Sun, Cancer Rising, Capricorn Sun, Capricorn Rising, if you have something in your chart at 3 degrees ish, right? Just be aware of that. So Cancer Capricorn is kind of an interesting dynamic. It has to do with private life, public life, and balancing the two. And it has to do with the fact that things that happen in our private life, when they become public knowledge, they affect our status and our reputation and our public perception of us. And so the new moon there, what I would say is just be careful for something that may begin or come up in alignment with the new moon to have an impact on private life and on public life potentially. And so you just want to be cognizant of that. You want to be cognizant of the repercussions potentially of having your private dealings, your private business, your private life made public. Okay. And we'll talk more about that when we have our new moon intention setting coming up, which will be on the 19th, I believe, is when we're doing that. And then this new moon it takes place in the 10th house. So that really to me signifies prominent new beginnings, especially with that Saturn opposition. That really fuels that 10th house energy. And this new moon is also opposed to Pluto. Now, it's a little bit wider opposition than we have with Saturn. Saturn is, within 12 minutes of arc, right? But it's also an out of sign opposition because Pluto is currently transiting Sagittarius. So I want to call that out as being notable. It may be more notable for folks with Scorpio Sun or Scorpio Rising. But Pluto will flavor the new moon as well. even though the opposition is an out of sign opposition. And when Pluto gets all up in our business, he tends to sometimes be a little bit destructive, but always transformative in some way. Okay. Now, the last one coming up that I really want to call out as being super significant to kind of put a pin in on your calendar is Mercury, finally direct, squaring Mars July 27th. Now, if you'll recall, on my last broadcast, I mentioned that on the 9th of July, we were going to have a retrograde Mercury squaring Mars, and that could bring up some sort of disagreement or argument that maybe you have had in the past and you thought everything had been all ironed out. It could bring it back up. Well, we have this final square coming up at the 27th. So if this has happened for you, you may not really see whatever this issue is, this disagreement or argument or conflict. You may not really see it come to a resolution until we hit that final square now that Mercury is direct. So put a pin in the 27th, keep your eyes on that date, and kind of think back to what happened on the 9th at the last square to kind of get an idea of what theme or issue this may be bringing up for you. Okay. And now looking ahead kind of through the end of the month, we've got a couple of Mercury oppositions coming up. Mercury's going to oppose retrograde Jupiter on July 30th. And then we're going to have Mercury opposing retrograde Pluto in early August as well. But we'll talk about all that and more on the next broadcast, on the next Sidereal Insights Astro update coming up. Ooh, gosh, when? I still have July 13th in my notes. Clearly, I didn't update that. So that'll be on the 27th. It'll be the day of that square. Oh, my goodness. And that's pretty much it for today's broadcast. Just a few announcements for you. Please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to make sure that you don't miss the broadcasts. That's always a great way to stay in touch with what's going on. Please stay tuned for news about when we go into pre-order for the Ultimate Astrological Planner, the 2021 Ultimate Astrological Planner. That's going to be coming soon. And if you want to sign up, I will add in the video description a link where you can sign up to be notified when the pre-sale begins. I usually offer a bit of a discount when those are in pre-order. And then finally, the last thing I have for you is kind of a big ask. Can you help me help a cute little sweet one-eyed alley cat hanging out behind my house? I've called her Lisa Lopes. My neighbor calls her Jack for one-eyed Jack. She's a little feral kitty, and I'm trying to coax her and tame her enough that I can get her in a crate and get her to a vet and get her eye taken care of, get her shots, get her spayed, get all that stuff, and get her adopted. And so I'm going to include a link to a little GoFundMe. If you can help donate, that's wonderful. If you can share the link, that's wonderful too. I'm just trying to raise some money for her care and adoption, which may be me, may not be me, depends on if my cats are willing to accept her or not. But I want to make sure that she gets into a good long-term home and gets the care she needs, because she's a little black kitty and she's got one eye and she's an alley cat and she's got so many strikes against her, living her best life, but she's such a sweetheart. And I would love any help that you can offer myself or Lisa in getting her the medical care that she needs and getting her to a wonderful, loving, caring, forever home. Thank you so much for joining me on today's broadcast, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.